What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater. It's Monday night and I'm outside, so it must mean it's time to review Monday Night Raw. Now, before we get started, I think it goes without saying that this is unequivocally the worst episode of Raw of all time. But, for old time's sake, let's do what we always do, and that is go through it segment by segment. All right. There were a lot of segments in tonight's Raw, 99% of which were complete wastes of time. So, let's start from the beginning and go from there. And when I say 99%, let's be real. Everything on this show was a colossal waste of time. So, the show opens up, not like it should, with the Raw theme song to hype you up for what you're about to see. But it starts out with people coming into the arena. Now, normally, at the very least, even in this modern era, you'll see like Cody Rhodes coming out of his bus, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, like people that are at least somewhat in the main event. This episode of Raw, you saw the likes of Ludwig Kaiser coming out. You know what I mean? This is what we have to look forward to in this day and age. People that have accomplished nothing on TV. This is basically an indie show, you know what I mean, at this point. But this happens, but the show quickly takes a turn towards the quasi-main event with CM Punk coming out. The fans couldn't give a shit about this promo. CM Punk stumbles his lines left and right. The fans only react when he tells them to. And several times, he expected a reaction but didn't get one. He made a lot of comments about Boston, hoping that they'd cheer, but they don't give a flying fuck. You know what I mean? He's boring and always has been. It's as simple as that. CM Punk is kind of like Obama. Remember Obama, the president? You know what I'm saying? Now, Obama, whether you like him or not, is a story on its own, right? I thought Obama was like an okay president, right? But I never understood how Obama got this quality that people gave him of being this great speaker. It's like he would stumble his words all the time, you know what I mean? Now, he's not a complete degenerate, like he's better than George Bush, you know what I mean? So maybe that's why. But they would act like Obama was The Rock. No, Obama would stumble his lines, and so does CM Punk. I bet you didn't think you'd hear an Obama comparison today, but here you are, right? The point I'm trying to make is that CM Punk has never been that great on the mic, but he's been given the privilege of being considered to be someone that's good on the mic. If you compare him to Edge, Christian, Bubba, Dudley, and I'm talking about these guys, let alone if you compare him to The Rock and Stone Cold and Jericho, it's not even close. He's not good on the mic. It's as plain and simple as that. Seth Rollins comes out after CM Punk makes an obscure reference to some TV show nobody watched, right? Nobody reacts to this reference. It was a shit reference probably. Never heard of the show, so I don't care. Rollins comes out in the crowd. CM Punk says, "You're where you belong," being a CM Punk fan, right? We get it. CM Punk doesn't think very highly of Rollins. Then they start brawling, right? This is really weird because CM Punk said he didn't care about Rollins, but now they're going to have a match. Nothing really exciting here at all. Seth Rollins also didn't get much of a reaction. Nobody cared about this segment, right? Nobody was excited about this. You could just tell. Then eventually, we get a segment of the Judgment Jobbers in the back. This stable is terrible, right? It's obviously on its last leg. The only thing keeping it interesting was Rhea Ripley and a little bit Damian Priest. But these guys now are so far from the stable that Edge started with Damian Priest and eventually Rhea Ripley. They're just a bunch of wrestlers that hang out together. They have no discernible gimmick. They have no discernible goals. They have no discernible thing that they do at all, right? At least when Edge was in charge, they were this first of all, they were this satanic cult kind of, number one. And two, they were sadistic. They would even when they kicked Edge out, they beat the shit out of him. Now it's they just do roll-ups. It's a faction of people who do roll-ups, right? And it's been diluted by people like Raquel Rodriguez and Carlito, right? The good ones are obviously only Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. All the other four have no business even being in this company. Anyways, they just have a shitty, backstage segment where Liv Morgan basically sarcastically makes fun of Finn Balor's attempt at a catchphrase. It's they're burying each other, where Finn says something if you believe in Finn, you win, right? Which I get it. It's supposed to be a corny catchphrase in and of itself, but it's it's not true. It's not true. Finn doesn't win. Finn's a loser. You know what I'm saying? Finn has won one match that mattered in his main roster run, which has now lasted like 10 years. And that's his first match for the world title against Seth Rollins. Since then, he's been a mid-card nobody that has never drawn a dime. But anyways, we're not going to spend too much time talking about these jobbers because they're going to come up later as well. Then we have a Seth and Drew McIntyre backstage promo. It's about Roman Reigns. That's all you need to know. Like, Drew McIntyre is such a loser that his entire character now is that he's pissed off at Roman Reigns. All of a sudden. It's like he was pissed at CM Punk, now he's pissed at Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, on the other hand, has absolutely nothing to say to Drew McIntyre. Maybe Drew will screw him on January 6th, but who cares? At this point, it doesn't matter. Let's say he does. Okay, great. Roman Reigns is still Roman Reigns. Sol Sikoa is still Sol Sikoa, even if he has the pepper necklace. And at the end of the day, nothing changes. Roman Reigns is going to just change his, his point of view and start focusing on Drew McIntyre if this happens. And that's going to be how he moves off from Sol Sikoa. So who cares if it happens or not? But basically, Drew McIntyre's point is that only he and Seth Rollins understand how basically the Usos and Sami Zayn are cuckolds, right? Well, I got news for you, Drew. The hater understands too. The hater has been calling out those bitch pussies for months now and saying how they went back to being lackeys. Drew McIntyre represents the people in this case, the intelligent wrestling fan who sees the incongruity of the storyline. Likewise, in some ways, Seth Rollins represents the same fans when he points out the reality that CM Punk left the WWE, not on good terms, took every pot shot he could at them, and more important than all that, he prayed for their failure, right? He wanted them to fail. So it's like now he's back. He couldn't collapse Vince McMahon's empire. He's fucking CM Punk. He obviously thought he was this big draw. I know what everyone's thinking. No, CM Punk's a big draw. If you put CM Punk on like, I don't know, like one of those, those like E or TLC celebrity shows, like the needle wouldn't move. It's not like the CM Punk season would get more viewers than they would if they had like literally anybody else. Like if they had like Mini-Me from Austin Powers, rest in peace. It'd be like on that level. Like he's not like a mainstream star in any capacity. And you know this not only from the fact that you see what's happening and from the fact that I'm telling you exactly how it's going down, but you also know this deep inside because CM Punk has to consistently remind us how he's a big deal. That's because if you look at him, you would never conclude that he's a big deal. You would always think, who is this lesser than? Who is this nobody? Who is this jobber? Now, speaking of jobbers, it's been about an hour and 5 or 6 minutes into the show, and we finally get our first match. This is unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. It's just crazy. I think it's either been an hour, no, it's been like 30 minutes, sorry. But like in the first hour and like 20 minutes, we get one match. And that match was Ludwig Kaiser versus Bron Breakker. This was a very uneventful match. The match is like a semblance of a back and forth, but it leans a lot towards Ludwig Kaiser. And it's almost like the people that produced this match, that booked this match, want to give off this impression to the fans that Ludwig Kaiser has a snowball's chance in hell, and more than that actually, to become the Intercontinental Champion. Now we all know that's not going to happen, so it's almost disrespectful to the fans, right? This wasn't done for a purpose. It's not like the Taka Michinoku Triple H match that I bring up all the time, where Triple H is obviously going to win, but the way the match is booked gives you the impression that Taka has like a 0.01% chance because he gets like the APA to come there and like neutralize DX, you know what I mean? It was a good storyline driven match. This is not that. This is just an athletic contest. Now, I can't get past the way that Ludwig Kaiser wrestles. Okay, so in this match, the psychology of the match, the logic of the match was that apparently Bron Breakker's arm either was injured before or got injured during the match, so Ludwig is targeting it. Nothing wrong with that, logically, right? But all these arm moves that Ludwig Kaiser does are just straight up stupid moves. There's one where he traps Bron's arm between his legs as he's standing, and he just falls backwards. It doesn't do anything to the arm at all, but we're supposed to believe that it does. Then he does that, like, the best way I can describe it is like the code breaker to the arm. You know what I mean? Like the one that like Del Rio would do. But instead of doing it like that, he just grabs the arm and just falls backwards. Like he just grabs the guy's arm and takes a back bump, right? Like that should hurt someone's face because they're falling face first while you fall back first. It's almost like a reverse STO, right? Like a complete shot, except he holds the arm and somehow the arm gets hurt. Like, it's complete nonsense. You know what I mean? This is the kind of stuff that you need to like think through so that wrestling looks real. That's all I could think about during this entire match. Like, I understand that we have to suspend disbelief for a little bit. Like, when the hater would watch wrestling, I'd force my father to watch wrestling with me sometimes in the attempt to convince him that this is a legitimate form of entertainment. And like, I just had a lot of bad luck because it'd always be like Rey Mysterio versus Booker T or something, right? And my dad's like, the guy with the mask is like 1/3 the size of the other guy. The other guy's gonna win. And I'm like, no, Dad, you'll see. And then Rey Mysterio does like a dropkick to the knee. Booker T hangs on the middle rope like an idiot. Rey Mysterio does the 619, and my dad's like laughing his ass off. He's like, this is stupid. How can you be entertained by this? Why wouldn't the guy just get up, right? And then I have to explain to him, well, Dad, he set up the move. My dad's like, that's stupid, right? But anyways, this is what that match felt like, except the only difference is, instead of Booker T and Rey Mysterio, you know, you had Ludwig Kaiser and Bron Breakker. Another thing about Bron Breakker, like there's a part of the match where he does the relatively impressive, like, see, this is how you know the hater is not biased at all. Like, Bron Breakker is probably my second favorite wrestler after LA Knight and the entire WWE roster, but I have to call it like it is. He does like the, you know, he jumps on the top rope basically, and does like a Frankensteiner. You know what I mean? And people are like, wow, how could a man the size of Braun do this? Gee, I don't know. How did Shelton Benjamin do it, who's like 30 pounds bigger than this guy? You know what I mean? How did Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy do these things? They're the same size. Like, Braun is more muscular, but Jeff Hardy's like 6'1". Braun's like 5'9" probably. You know? So, like, it's the same comparison that I make when they say, like, oh, Jacob Fatu shouldn't be able to move this way for a man his size. He's the size of Jeff Hardy, maybe plus 10 pounds. And when Jeff Hardy did it, it wasn't like, I can't believe he did this. It was just like a foregone conclusion that someone like Jeff Hardy is going to do this. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be one thing if, like, you had, like, Bradshaw do this. Then that would be impressive, right? But if you have, like, a person who's, like, you know, realistically, he, like if Bron Breakker fought in, like, the UFC, he'd be, like, a middleweight at best, right? He's a middleweight. You know, his legit, like, fight size would be, like, 185, right? I mean, he's a muscular guy, but he's nothing crazy either, you know what I mean? And he's kind of small. So, like, they make him seem as if it's, like, fucking, like, Bobby Lashley doing it. Like, relax, man. Like, I have eyes. I can see what's going on. And this part of this era, this new era, that they want us to call the Paul Levesque era, but that I call the era of lies, the gaslight era, is just absurd. It's like we see people doing completely rudimentary things, but because we're told that it's amazing, we have to accept that it's amazing. There's nothing amazing about Bron Breakker doing that. It's impressive to a degree, but it's not as impressive as all the shit that Shelton Benjamin did, and quite frankly, the shit that he still does today. And Shelton Benjamin is like 3 inches taller and probably has the same amount of muscle mass. Maybe Shelton Benjamin is a little bit weaker physically, but not by much, you know what I mean? Like, but when Shelton Benjamin did it, it was like, wow, he's so athletic. When Bron Breakker does it, it's like, wow, how could he have done this, you know? Like, relax, you know what I mean? Like, we have eyes, we see what's going on. Long story short, I made the story long, but long story short, Bron Breakker picks him up in the fireman's carry and does that fireman's carry double knee gut buster thing, and that's basically it. This move is like a signature move now, sets him up for the super spear. Basically, I thought he was going to miss, but Bron Breakker gets up, runs across the rope several times, spears him, pins him, 1, 2, 3, the end, right? So I don't know what the logic was of, like, making Ludwig Kaiser seem competitive. Like, Ludwig Kaiser can seem competitive against everybody if you want him to, but he has to win a match here and there to make that, like, be sold to the audience, right? I don't care if, like, someone does a lot, like Apollo Crews. He'll do some moves in every match, and then he'll get hit with a finisher, and that's it. You know? This only works if he wins several matches here and there at least, right? But that's not what happened, and that's not what we got. Then we see a segment with a New Day. This segment could have just been put last week. This should have been the segment that followed the commercial break after New Day did their in-ring segment, right? The segment is them trying to go to the locker room, I guess. Rey Mysterio, who's like the locker room leader, is like, you guys should find another place to change. Now, I like this, right? Because I did say that I consider the betrayal of Big E to be right there with JBL betraying Farouk, right? To me, these are bigger betrayals than like Carlito did the backstabber on Chris Masters. You know what I mean? Like bullshit like that. These are betrayals because they're not violent, right? They're not physical. They're straight up, I don't like you. There's a great movie called The Banshees of Inisherin. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a great movie with Colin Farrell and what's his name? the Gleason guy, Liam Gleason, I don't know. Great movie, right? It's basically a parable about like Ireland and Northern Ireland and how they have like a conflict. But it's presented as like two friends where one friend tells the other guy, I don't want to be friends anymore. And then the other guy's like, what the fuck do you mean you don't want to be friends anymore? The guy's like, I don't want to be friends with you, you're boring, right? And it's like this, there's like this level of cruelty that comes with that, where it's like, if you're that honest with someone, it's bad. However, in the context of kayfabe, this doesn't apply. This applies only because we know that wrestling is what wrestling is. Rey Mysterio, the character, isn't supposed to know this. In kayfabe, Rey Mysterio is supposed to just live inside this world of wrestling. So, if Rey Mysterio doesn't want them to change in the locker room, why is he okay with, like, presumably Dexter Lumis changing in the locker room, right? I'm just saying as an example, you know? Like people that are kidnapping people. Like, what's worse, honestly? Like Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods betraying, Big E and telling him we're not friends anymore? Or Dexter Lumis and Bo Dallas kidnapping and torturing The Miz? They should be fired from the company by these standards. But nevertheless, I know I'm nitpicking here. The segment did what it was supposed to do. My gripe with it is that it should have happened last week as a follow-up of them getting booed. This does not merit waiting 1 week to see this. And we probably did it. They probably just filmed it right afterwards. They're like, oh, change your hat or something so nobody can tell they're wearing the same exact clothes. Take off your jacket, wear another jacket, and just do this little promo with Rey Mysterio while he's still here. You know what I mean? Before he goes home for the holidays, probably. So there you have it. That's how that shit went down. You dig? Now, we're told by Adam Pearce that we're going to see, Rollins and Punk on Netflix. All right. Rollins basically requested this match, and it was put on the Netflix card. Now, whether you like it or not, whether the hater likes it or not, this does bolster up the Netflix card. The Netflix card of the Netflix, Raw, the first episode of Raw on Netflix, I should say, is being presented now, and it's being elevated to, like, the level of, like, not just a PLE, but I would argue, like, to the level of one of the big 4 pay-per-views, right? It feels like a big deal. It's a big deal for socioeconomic reasons, but it's also a big deal in wrestling, right? It's a big deal in kayfabe. A lot of shit is going down there. I think they also did later, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, they're gonna have a match. I'm sure it's gonna be that day too, right? It's gonna be a packed 2 hours. It's gonna be interesting to see how many commercials they have, because if it's anything like this Raw, nothing's gonna happen, because this Raw was like 99% commercials. You don't necessarily notice all the commercials, but it'll be like after the commercial ends, they'll just show like a panoramic view of the crowd, and Joe Tessitore will be like, "This match has been brought to you by Cricket Wireless." That's another commercial. What match, first of all? Up until now, we've only had one matchup in this bitch. I've been talking probably for like 15 minutes, and we've had like one matchup in this mug. But anyways, this marks about the halfway point of the show. Miz is basically trying to get out on a backstage segment of his association with the Final Testament, right? This was an interesting segment because now Karrion Kross tells The Miz that he is going to be wrestling Dexter Lumis next week, right? Miz says he doesn't want to. Then he leaves, and then like Paul Ellering or somebody, I didn't even notice, but they're like, do you think Miz can beat him? And I'm like, who the fuck wrote this? Like right before this, Karrion Kross reminds The Miz that The Miz has won 22 titles, right? Now, in this feud, we have like 9 other people, right? 10 if you count Paul Ellering, but let's be real. I don't know what the fuck Paul Ellering has done in his career until now. Like, I didn't know who he was until he showed up in NXT. I'm not going to lie to y'all, right? But the other 9 wrestlers that are involved in this feud, like, Miz has won more titles, right, than all 9 of them combined, right? Like, all 9 of them combined have won, like, 3 titles. Miz has won 7 times more titles than all 9 of them combined. So, we factor it, 9 times 7, 63. Miz is 63 times better than these jobbers, than any one of these jobbers. So the notion that The Miz is somehow scared of wrestling Dexter Lumis is absurd, because The Miz has wrestled John Cena. The Miz has wrestled Randy Orton. The Miz has wrestled everybody there is to wrestle. Jericho, CM Punk. He's wrestled legends, He's been in the ring with The Rock and like talked down to him. And now I'm supposed to believe that he's afraid of Dexter Lumis? Like, who's never won a match? And then like to add salt to the wounds, Paul Ellering, or whoever the fuck it was, I'm going to assume it was Paul Ellering, because AOP doesn't talk, and I think it was a dude that said it. He says, do you think The Miz can beat Dexter Lumis? Gee, I don't know. Who has Dexter Lumis ever beaten? Why would anyone not be able to beat Dexter Lumis? Dexter Lumis sucks. You know? And this is coming from a fan of Dexter Lumis. He was one of my favorite guys in NXT. Him and Cameron Grimes, but here we are, cucks. Anyways, that's going to happen next week. No one's going to give a flying fuck. Next up, we have like the third of the Intercontinental title tournament for the women. Zoe Stark versus Raquel versus, not Katana Chance, but the other Kaden Carter, right? Who apparently is from the Isles of the Philippines, the Philippine Isles. Who knew? Anyways, who cares? They have the match. It's a complete botch fest. Raquel Gonzalez, whatever the fuck her name is. She is interesting. I like her. She's athletic and big, you know? She does cool shit. But, long story short, Zoe Stark hits her little finishing move, the Z360, whatever the fuck it's called, botches it completely, and pins Kaden Carter. Great, who cares? I don't think Zoe Stark is going to win the title, so this match is completely meaningless. You know? They should have given it to Raquel, because at least she has a chance of becoming the women's Intercontinental title holder, the first one that is. But I don't see Kaden Carter, nor do I see fucking Zoe Stark, like, do it, right? But this is an important event because Zoe Stark finally won a match. I think this puts the record of the pure jobber collective at like 1-15 or something like that, right? They're just jobbers, which brings me to another point that I want to make. I'm going to make an entire video about this, but the point is this. Even the jobbers don't act like jobbers. Like back in the day, we had jobbers that like were kind of like aware that they're jobbers, right? I mean, like kind of like, think of like Pretty Deadly, right? Something like that, where they're aware that they suck. You know, like Taka Michinoku, he didn't have aspirations to go and beat like the Big Show. He would go there, get his ass beat, he knew. So he was a comedy character so that they could make use of him. Now, like the jobbers are like serious characters. Like Shayna Baszler comes out pointing, like she makes her fingers look like a gun and points, and she's like, yeah. And it's like, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose every match ever. You're a complete failure in this medium. Remember when Shayna Baszler was like this big like threat, and then she just started losing literally every match after Becky Lynch squashed her essentially in the pandemic WrestleMania? Anyways, it is what it is. Then we have like a segment that didn't need to happen at all. Chad Gable yells at Otis, and he says he's gonna beat up Tozawa soon, right? Great. I don't know why we're coming back to this, and quite frankly, I don't care. I could give a shit. This thing has already been resolved. They're hashing it out again. I don't care. Now it's time for the main event. The main event was boring as fuck. The Boar Raiders they're just a boring tag team. I know like they have a lot of talent in terms of like their wrestling ability, but the problem with them is that they're like, it's too late to like rehabilitate them. First of all, they have like a promo during the show where they're like talking like regular dudes wearing regular dude clothes. I thought these were two retarded guys who thought they were Vikings. You can't just like move away from that, right? You have to explain it. At the very least, you have to explain it away with a joke that addresses it, right? I'll give you an example. Remember when Kofi Kingston all of a sudden dropped his Jamaican accent? And there's that like famous scene where Triple H says, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be from Jamaica, right? And then Kofi just like looks and Mark Henry like laughs in the background and they all have a laugh at it and that's it, right? A lot of people thought this was like a Triple H burial. No, this was Triple H basically like helping Kofi move away from that gimmick, right? Because people would ask that question. But as soon as it's addressed, right? This is called an icebreaker, cucks. As soon as the ice is broken, then it's time to go for a swim. You know what I mean? And that's what should happen with the War Raiders, right? Maybe just have like a segment of like Ivar like waking up from a dream and being like, oh, I dreamt we were Vikings and that's it. Something stupid like that would work. But you have to address the fact that these guys thought they were Vikings. You can't just like all of a sudden normalize them. All the two retards that came out like thinking they were Vikings with a girl who thought she was like a Viking priestess. And all of a sudden they're regular dudes talking about how they have surgeries and how like one of them had a child. Fuck out of here with that bull, you know what I mean? Also, if they're not going to be Vikings anymore, then they should be renamed. Like Raymond Rowe and Hanson have a much better ring than Eric and Ivar, who sound like it's like Barney and Fred. You know what I mean? Oh, there goes Eric and Ivar. Yabba dabba doo, motherfucks. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, they win the match. Basically what happens is that Judgment Day is barred from ringside, and Damian Priest comes and prevents, he interferes, but he prevents Finn Balor from using the chair. As a result, they hit the War Machine, which now the War Machine is the thing where Raymond Rowe holds the guy in essentially an elevated German suplex, and Hansen, also known as Ivar, does like a springboard spinning clothesline, right? That's what the War Machine is now. It used to be a different move. So like, you know, I don't blame you if you can't keep up. And the show just ends basically abruptly after they win the titles, as the announcers are putting over the fact that Damian Priest was involved. Instead of saying, wow, what a great moment for Eric and Ivar, they're like Tessitore is like, there's been a lot of good point guards in the Celtics, but perhaps none better than Damian Priest. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? He gave them the assist. What about the people that won? What about the person that scored? You know what I mean? John Stockton is the greatest point guard of all time, but nobody gives a fuck. It's all Karl Malone. He's the one who put the ball in the hoop. Dumb fucks. I'm a big John Stockton guy, but let's face it. You know, maybe he wouldn't be the best point guard ever without Karl Malone. So the point I'm trying to make is, at the very least, focus on Karl Malone once in a while. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got to say about that. So overall, this show had 3 wrestling matches, and as evidenced by basically me going through every single segment, it had a bunch of segments that bore no fruit, right? The trees in which these segments are rooted bore no fruit and will never bear any fruit. This episode of Raw can best be remembered and contextualized as a long 2-hour commercial for other shit. Some of it are things that already happened, like Saturday Night Main Event. Some of it are for things that are going to happen, specifically January 6th, which is, of course, the Hater reboot and everything else that I mentioned in the last video, but also, obviously, Raw on Netflix. And, of course, obviously, Raw couldn't be complete without, like, 900 commercials about sponsors and other things. You know, C4, the energy drink sponsor of Raw. How does C4 even get behind that? They have a fucking thing called the Prime Hydration Station right there, and the Prime logo in the middle of the ring. And those dumb fucks at C4 are like, yeah, we're the official drink. What do you mean your official drink? Are you stupid? You know what I'm saying? But anyways, that's what I have to say about that. The show was an easy 0 out of 10. I didn't have to think about it at all. It's not even close to a 1. Like, if I could go negatives, I'd go negatives. This is a clear goose egg. A goose egg out of 10. 0. You know what I mean? Nothing happened. And I'm going to say one thing. There was a point in the Ruthless Aggression era where, because of the draft and the way things went down, Christian Cage main evented like Raw and then was drafted to SmackDown. And he also main evented SmackDown in that 6-man elimination match where like JBL won, but it meant nothing because Batista came back, you know. And Christian then on the next episode of Friday Night SmackDown, he was like, I'm the first guy to main event both Raw and SmackDown since like 1999 or whatever, right? Since some odd, you know, like several years. And the reason why this was important was to show how difficult it is to main event. Now, like, it's completely not unforeseeable if, let's say, Eric and Ivar decide to show up on SmackDown as a result of like the open window, transfer window, whatever, right? And they go and they challenge like Motor City Machine Guns, you know? Or DIY, I should say, because I forgot that they dropped the titles. Like, that wouldn't be that weird. And maybe that could be the main event. And now it's like Eric and Ivar are also people that main evented both shows. Now anyone can be in the main event. But I ask you, did this feel like a main event? At any point during this match between Eric and Ivar and fucking Finn Balor and JD McDonough, which I'm like laughing even saying this, did anyone here think, wow, what a main event? No. All of you likely thought, what the fuck is this pre-show match doing main eventing Raw? You know what I mean? There was a point in the match where I just had like a light bulb moment where I'm like, holy shit, like basically Eric does the move that used to be called the death row when he was Raymond Rowe on Finn Balor, who no-sells it, right? And thinking to myself, man, this is like Raymond Rowe, who was like an ROH nobody, and Raymond Rowe is in the ring with a former world champion. And the former world champion is getting his ass beat by 2 guys who used to think they were Vikings. So I'm going to come up with a new concept. Another video on this at some point. The retroactive, the haters, retroactive championship removal. You know what I mean? Where if you're a champion, but you're like a 1-time champion, even if you're a 2-time champion, but you've done nothing before or after that, then it's removed, motherfucks. It's removed. Like, the fact that Finn Balor or Kevin Owens have been champions once doesn't mean fuck all, right? It doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, he was champion for 1 day, literally, and then he spent 9 years and 364 days going back and forth with people like Eric. See what I'm saying? So, as far as I'm concerned, Finn Balor, for the purposes of this channel, has never been a world champion in cuckolds. Let's hope he wins one soon. But with that being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Basically, by Thursday, I expect to be done with all the work, the big work that I need to do. And that's probably when we're going to pick our winner in the hater sweepstakes. You know what I mean? It's going to take me some time probably to like find a system. Probably going to just attach a number to everybody that's in the comment section talking about it. You know, based on like where you are in the comment section. And I'm just going to just do like a random number generator. So that's how it's going to be. But I'm going to read all the comments. So don't think you can go there and put like the same comment. Hey, maybe that might work. I don't know. Go to the page and just keep writing like, I hereby declare myself for the, what's it called? For the hater sweepstakes. But I'll probably catch you. So that, you know, you don't want to do that. We want to keep this fair, right? And keep in mind, as the hater said before, there are people that could really use $100, you know? So if you're someone that's like doing well and doing fine, consider that some of the haters' fans might not be doing as well as you, you know? Spread the Christmas cheer around, cuckolds, especially some of the haters' fans who like might be out of the country, right? Like some fans that I have from like India and like fucking African countries and shit like that, where $100 in their currency could be a lot more, you know, could go a lot farther, basically, a lot further, cucks. So, you know, keep that in mind. Some people might need it more than you. So, but hey, that's not the rules. The rules are, if you're a fan of the haters, you can apply. You know what I mean? So there you have it. That being said, cucks, take care of yourselves and go fuck your mothers.